Today's video is going to be a questions and answer video, and it really is aimed at the people who have started in turning, beginners and novices. It might not be of too much interest to those of us who have got a bit more experience, so turn off now if you want to get bored. The most popular question I get is regarding my finish, what finish I use. I mean, I call it my finish, it's just a wax finish, and a process that I have been using since basically I've been turning. And it consists of 3 ingredients really. And as you all know, it's my old sanding sealer mix to start with, and I apply 2 coats of that to the bare wood and then denib in between each application when it's dry, and use either 0000 wire wool or indeed the last grit that you used to sand down the piece. So if you sand it up to 600 grit, then use 600 grit or even 800 grit to just cut back that sanding sealer. So I use a mix of their chestnut products. I'm not endorsing chestnut, it's just one of those products I've used again since I've started, because it's readily available in the UK and in my local wood turning shop. And it's chestnut cellulose sanding sealer and cellulose thinners, and I mix those 2 together in a ratio of 3 of the sanding sealer to 1 of the thinners. And I merely use a little plastic bottle like so, and I mix sort of that much up if you like, and it's only approximate. It just thins down the sealer a little bit, it makes it go on a little bit easier, dries quicker, and is a little quicker to cut back and to denib. So I apply 2 coats of again a chestnut product, wood wax 22, which is a mix of canuba wax and beeswax. I apply 2 coats of that and allow 10 to 15 minutes depending on the atmosphere in your workshop between each coat, and buff out between each coat. One method I use on smooth wood or wood that hasn't got inclusions etc. is I apply the first coat of that with 0000 wire wool. That again is a personal preference. I like it because I like to keep the natural look of the wood and just get a lustre as opposed to a high shiny gloss. So that's my finish that I use. The next question I get asked a lot about is work holding. Well, there are very many different ways of holding work, and all I'm going to cover are the main questions I get asked, which are: I put a tenon on my work, I put it in my chuck and it flew off while I was turning it. Well, there are several possibilities there, obviously. All I can do is tell you what I've been taught, if you like, by watching other people on YouTube and reading articles, etc. about tenons and how you should form them and put them into your forge. Here we have a tenon to fit into straight. These are my medium gripper jaws. Now the important thing is that the back of the blank, now you must bear in mind that this actually would be a blank here and I put a tenon here. Now that tenon, the back of that tenon must not touch the back of the jaws. It's got to fit flush to the front of the jaw there. And the other important thing is that the holding gap should be as small as possible before the jaws actually touch. Now there you can see there is a very small gap between the jaws, and what this means is that the jaws are forming as near as possible to a perfect circle, and that gives you even holding right around the tenon, which makes for a very strong grip. The second method is using a dovetail, and again on the dovetail tenon you cut the tenon to the profile of your dovetail jaws, and they will vary depending what chuck you have and what jaw sets you have, and as near as possible you get the same angle as your dovetail is in your jaws. Some people actually have a small skew chisel ground to exactly the right dimension. I don't actually go to that level, but I do mine by eye, and again the shoulder of the tenon must be tight up against the face of the jaws, and the size of the tenon again is the same as with the straight tenon. It is of a dimension which allows you to tighten up the jaws with the smallest possible gap before they touch, which then ensures a tight fit, and it draws the blank into the jaws for a very solid. Another method of holding, which is again very popular and is extremely effective, is hot glue. And your hot glue gun looks like that, and it plugs into your mains and it heats up, and consequently it melts the glue, and you pull the trigger and the glue comes out of the end. The sticks that are used are just glue sticks, regular, what I call craft supply glue sticks. You get the glue as hot as your gun will get it. You put your waste block into your chuck. This is only a small waste block and a small bit of waste wood, just to show you the process. And you can just score some circles on the face of the waste block with a pencil to give you an idea to centralise it, and then you get your waste block, you get your blank, and put a good splodge of glue on it, of glue as hot as you can get it, as I say. Centralise it and press it in, and bring up the tailstock just for a bit of extra support until it dries, and then just put a bead around the join like so, a little bit more there, and allow it to dry. Now you'll know when it's dry. I mean, the one I use, it goes a sort of opaque milky colour, and that's when it's dry. And now you can see it's dry, it's gone an opaque colour, you can see that there, and that indicates to you that it's dry enough and you can start turning your piece. The next question I get asked quite a bit is regarding tool sharpening. How often do you sharpen your tools? Well, the simple answer to that is when they need sharpening. And I don't wish to sound trite saying that. You know when your tools have started to become dull because you're exerting extra pressure on the work, which is not only dangerous, it doesn't give you a very good finish. So with your gouges and scrapers, etc., you merely need to go over to the grinding wheel and touch them up. And that's all I mean, it's just one or two passes just to get that edge nice and keen again. And with the skew chisel I use, as I've showed you before, I use a leather strop. I very rarely, once I've got the shape that I'm looking for on the skew chisel, got the bevel correct, in between using it, all I do is go to the leather strop, I lock that in a vise, and then strop it with a compound applied to the leather. And that's all I do with regards to the skew chisel for sharpening. Methods of holding goblets, etc. When I'm doing my goblets, I use a tennis ball, I use a wooden cone. And as far as the goblets are concerned, regarding the holding, what I use is a live centre where the point is removable. I just keep that out for this purpose. So then if you place that into your tailstock, and then this is just one of my first attempts at a goblet, and it's been living in the garage for the last couple of years, I should think. Obviously the stem, let's pretend that the stem is a little longer than that, and you need the stability because you're working your way down the stem. You place the tennis ball into the cup and bring your tailstock up very lightly, and then that affords some stability when you're working your way down the stem. Something else which is not too bad, and it's basically a piece of wood that I turn into a cone, and that fits over the live centre, and again the same idea, that goes into the cup and centralises and gives you some stability there. Another method, and I must admit I favour because it's a little bit more accurate with regard to centering your goblet, is again a live centre with the point removed and a piece of non-slip matting, which is also called router matting here in the UK, and that's just to stop any marking of the inside of the bowl, because when you're turning goblets you always finish the inside first, well at least I do. And again the same method, you put it into the cup, apply a very small amount of pressure, and that gives great stability. And I found this method actually the best of the three. And that's the way I stabilise my goblets as I'm cutting my way down the stem. Sanding. What's the best sandpaper to use? What grits do you use, etc. Again, it is a study on its own, sanding. All I can do is relay what I do. I use a cloth backed sandpaper, or I've just started using Abranet, and Abranet is a product where there are lots of little holes in it, and the dust that's produced goes through the holes, so it prevents clogging. Both are good. I use the cloth back more often. I've only just started using the Abranet, but whatever you do, don't put too much pressure on your sanding, because you will then, if you're using, let's say, 180 grit and you're putting a load of pressure on it, you're digging that in. It's not the grit that's doing the work, it's the pressure that you're exerting on it, so it's making deeper cuts, which are more difficult to remove with the next grit up. Which is very important not to miss out a grit, because if you miss out a grit, the grit that you've missed, the job that does is to remove the scratches created by the coarser grit before. So if you miss that one out, the next grit up, the finer grit, won't remove the marks. But I found that, let's say for example, I start with 150 grit, you go 150, 180, 240, 320, 400 and 600 and so on. And those are the levels of grit that I use and the stages that I use in general practice. Green wood or wet wood turning, great fun. I've been asked various questions regarding that. I've done quite a bit of green wood turning or wet wood turning. How do I store my bowls? What I do, what I call rough turn the bowl, get the basic shape, leave the walls of the bowl around 1 inch thick, put a tenon on the back of the bowl so you can remount it and true it up when it's dried out enough for you to finish it. And then all I do is I wrap the bowl in newspaper, put a rubber band around it, and inside I cover the bowl with the shavings that I produced roughing it out, and that's all I do. I've got a little mark on here. This is a cherry, a small, it's only about 6-7 inches, this one is a small crotch cherry bowl, and that's only been in for just over a month, 2 months now. But that'll take about 8 months, 9 months to dry out properly, but I keep looking at it every couple of months because I'm nosy, and checking on its progress and seeing if it's cracked and whatever. And if it does produce a little hairline cracks, what I do, and hopefully other people will comment, I just put a bit of super glue in that crack, mix a bit of sawdust in with it, and then let that dry, and then pack it up again, and normally when I come to use it, it's in good nick. Wet wood goblets, again, Robbie the Wood did a great video on his wet wood goblet, marvellous, and that inspired me on his first upload of it to have a bash, and they're great fun as well. The important thing with a wet wood goblet is to ensure that all the wall thickness of the bowl and the foot are even. Otherwise what happens is, and I hope that picks up there, as you can see that's my first attempt actually, the bowl is fine, it's distorted, which is all part of the character, and this is a piece of cherry, and it was really wet. I had only cut it down about a week before I did this, and to get the wall of the bowl even so that it dries evenly, or the moisture leaves it evenly, and then on the bottom of course it's cracked because I didn't undercut the foot. Now if you have a flat foot with no shape there, then that must be even as well. But then I thought, right, okay, did some research, and then on my second one, again, forget the design, this is only a practice, I undercut the foot considerably. There's a big dip there now, and no cracking whatsoever. And that's not finished or anything, I mean, it's merely the basic turning to test it out. And that also works on long stemmed ones. Again, this is a practice piece, and again, an even wall thickness on the bowl, a very long stem, and a big undercut on the base, and there's no cracking. It's all dried out, and it's quite dry now. It's all dried out very well. So those are a few tips on sort of wet wood turning. Another question which really and truly there is no definitive answer for, what lathe should I get, what tool should I get? All I can suggest is research and ask questions on YouTube. I get asked a lot of questions. I give my own personal opinion on what I suggest. Obviously it depends on budget, the size of your shop, what sort of work you're going to do. What I would say to you is, on something you decide, if you can afford to go up a notch, then you won't regret it, because normally when you get more experience you want to try new things out, and sometimes the very basic lathes are lacking in power and lacking in versatility. So a thing to think about. But ask questions, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that I get asked, and if I can't answer them I will find somebody who will be able to answer them for you. And it's only down to experience, and the big problem is what came first, the chicken or the egg? You don't know what you're going to need until you start doing the job. And as I say, my advice to you is go up a notch to what you decide on getting, because you won't regret it in the end. It is an ever evolving craft. You're never satisfied with what you've got or what you do, and as long as that happens, I think that keeps everybody interested in it. And thank you very much for the questions, by the way, because it's great to know that people are getting interested in the craft, and even people who've got a lot more experience than me might not have tried something that I tried out for the first time purely by chance. So you're forever learning things from other people, and that's what it's all about. And the other thing I get asked is, how do you keep your workshops clean? Well, again, the simple answer is I clean it. I'm not OCD, but I do like to come into a clean shop when I start a new project. And apart from that, the machinery, I mean the lathe, the bandsaw, all expensive pieces of kit. And if you're turning, especially if you're turning wet wood, you're going to be putting moisture on the bedways or on the table, on the bandsaw, and that's going to attract rust and so on. So a quick hoover down with the shop vac, get rid of all the bits and pieces, and I then spray a silicone spray over the exposed metal parts, and that just protects it then until I come into the shop next, just in case we get some damp weather and we get condensation, etc. And I can't see the point in misusing or mistreating your hard-earned cash that you've actually spent to buy your bits of machinery. I must admit that the cheaper bits of things I don't look after quite so well, because you think, well, if it does break I'll buy another one, because you're talking only a few pounds. So it's all relative, I suppose. But yes, I mean, I don't clean the corners every day, but I clean up all the mess that I make on a particular project and start fresh the next time. And apart from the fact that reduces the airborne dust, etc., that you get in, I mean, my workshop is a garage, it's quite drafty on occasions, so the draft comes in and it's moving all the dust that's about. Which leads me on to, again, a question I get, what are the basic things I need for protection? Again, there are a myriad of things to buy, to get involved in. I always now use a battery operated respirator, because I was bought one by my family about 18 months ago, and I use it all the time. It has the full face protection, it has filters which are easy to take off, to clean and to change, and it has a battery pack on the back which powers a fan in here which draws air in through the filters over your face, which is very nice in the summer, and it cleans the air that you're breathing. So it's a two-in-one. It's a dust mask and it's a full face protection. Now that's great. I mean, I've used that, as I say, even when I go to the bandsaw. It's easier because I wear glasses to pop that on rather than putting a dust mask on and the full face visor. The very basic items: full face shield to put on every time you're on the lathe, when you're on the grinder, the bandsaw or anything. It protects your eyes. I can't recommend these highly enough as a basic option for safety. Then obviously a dust mask, and I would only recommend a valved type, not the disposable non-valve types. To me they're next to useless. I mean, this is disposable, but it's more substantial and it has a valve which has a filter inside that as well, which affords you a little bit of extra protection. Very, very basic requirement in my opinion. Goggles are fine if you're happy with them. I can't see the point in using goggles when you can put a full face shield on, because your face is still exposed. That's my opinion. And of course ear defenders when you're working any machinery, because the noise levels can affect your hearing. Those are the basic things that I think you need. And also, don't wear any jewellery, watches, long sleeves. Keep everything as tight as you possibly can. You don't want anything hanging or dragging, because it'll catch it. It could catch in the lathe or any of the machinery you're using and cause you a lot of damage. Another question I get asked is, what sort of dust extraction do you need? Again, that's an open-ended question. I always have an extraction hose at the point of the dust being produced when I'm sanding, because I do dry sand the majority of the time, and that goes into the HEPA foil bags which are in there. That gets rid of a lot of the dust. It doesn't get rid of it all, so I always wear my respirator, and I got that on as well. And the next stage, I suppose, is something I got about 6 months ago. Not overly expensive, but very effective, is an air filtration system of some sort. There are various ones on the market. I went with a jet air filtration system, and I think that costs about £230. It's a lot of money, I appreciate, but what price health? And I do find a terrific difference, because there is always airborne dust in your workshop, and it always tickles me. We all do it. You're doing your sanding, you've got your dust mask on or your respirator, you've got your extraction going, and then as soon as you stop sanding, it all gets turned off and you take your mask off and you carry on doing whatever you're doing. But there's all that dust that has escaped is in the atmosphere, and that's the microscopic stuff. And if you've got a filtration system, however basic, it's going to be an improvement over none at all. So that's my opinion on the matter. Obviously, ideally, everything should be plumbed in. Every machine you use should have dust extraction on. I haven't got it plumbed in. I've got another vac which I hook up to the machines as I'm using them, which again is a great advantage, just other than letting the dust just escape into the atmosphere. Well, that just about covers the questions that I've had. I'm sorry it's gone on a bit longer than I'd anticipated, but these things happen. And I'd like to thank everybody for asking questions. Please keep them coming. PM me, email me, whatever. And as I say, if I can't answer them, I'll find out somebody who can, and I'll get back to you with their answer, or give you their details to contact them directly. And thank you very much for watching. And one further thing, I'd like to thank all my subscribers. I hit 4,500 last week, and I'm absolutely amazed. I'd like to thank everybody for supporting me and watching my videos, and more importantly, making comments, because we all learn from other people's experiences. Well, thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and also press the like button. Thanks a lot. Cheers now.